Hello, my name is Keith Blanchard. In 1996, I was awakened out of my sleep by a voice. Good morning, Keith. It's time for you to wake up. The voice did not necessarily mean for me to wake up out of my night's sleep. What the voice was really saying was, Keith, it's time to get your life back on track and to start living fully, wholly, happily. And as I sat up in bed because of the voice taking me back by surprise, I was thrown back on the bed, my eyes closed, and the voice began to speak again. Keep in mind, this voice did not speak in just an audible fashion. The voice was coming to me in a very different way. It was coming to me in the form of sight. The voice was coming to me in the form of smell. It was coming to me in the form of feeling. It was everything imaginable. It permeated every fiber of my being. I was aware of the molecules in the wall, where they came from, what they're doing there, and where they were going next. The voice begins to instruct me. Go sit on the sofa and press record on the tape player. Sit there and go into a light meditation. Just be present with yourself, and everything will flow effortlessly and easily. So I go sit on the sofa, fall into a light meditation, and as the voice said, sure enough, out came the information that was beyond my own conscious frame of reference. It was not me, as I know me to be, speaking. And I would like to share with you now all that I began to receive on that magical, special day in June of 1996.
Open your eyes, see inside. Nothing's like you knew before. See inside, see the light and more.
Scripture speaks of God as the living Word, the essence of life itself. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. How hard can it be to see how people create grief, fear, and division within themselves by denying this most profound truth? The first part of the divine principle is about recognizing the divine in everything, everywhere, all the time. This might be simple for you to grasp in as far as a concept, but what is most important, we need to raise our consciousness, so to speak, down from our head up to our heart, if that makes any sense to you. It's all about looking for God everywhere, all the time. If God is omnipresent, present in every place, all the time. When you begin to have such an awareness shift that you really start to get that, and you start to integrate that into your heart, that is when God becomes known, because of your intention for wanting it, for wanting to see it, for wanting to experience it. You have attention, and energy always follows attention. And so you are burning this new reality into your experience by your focus, by your desire, by your want, by your choice, by your perception, by your thoughts, by your words, by your feelings, by your deeds. It just becomes everything that you are. And so your life begins to take on a new form, a new shape, a new dance, a new dialogue, a new tone, a new texture, a new experience, a new way of being, all by your focus, all by beginning to live that God is omnipresent. It's even present within yourself. It's present in you as the one doing the looking for it. It's present in the one showing itself to you. And it begins to curve back within itself from that point. And then your life really becomes this explosion of miracles day after day after day. And once you begin to see these miracles happen, your belief and your conviction shoots through the roof. And then the miracles and the size of the miracles begin to grow and happen exponentially. And they begin to shoot through the roof. And this begins to curve back within itself. And believe me when I tell you, God becomes present within this body that you've always known as you. And the you that you've always thought you were to be begins to die. And you give birth to the Christ within yourself. There are 6 billion plus people on this planet, and everyone falls into one of three categories. There are those who do not believe in God at all. There are those who believe in God, but care nothing whatsoever about doing the work of having a God experience. And then there are those who are passionate about God. Everything in their life is driven towards having a God experience. They will build whatever ladder they can so that they can raise themselves up and open up the box of normal so they can go to the place where magic and miracles happen. Those people who no longer serve them in their life will leave. Those people who will come into their life as a support system will show up. Everyone gets on the same page. They begin to move forward exponentially. Life begins to grow. Miracles begin to happen. And life becomes this unfoldment of divine grace. I support you to take in these spiritual morsels that I will be offering you throughout this audio program. Take them in and digest them, process them, apply them in your life, and your life also will become one of divine unfoldment. We have this incredible tendency to separate ourselves from other people and God. And when we do that, we immediately open up the door for grief and fear to come into our lives. But the fact is, God is present with everyone, personally and directly all the time, mirroring us ourselves. Now, what we do with these reflections create our next moment and our next moment and so on. But when we begin to see God cosmosis taking place between ourselves, the parts that we know as us, and the parts that we think are external from us, the outside world, these two worlds become bridged, and we become part of that very breath, part of that cosmosis, if you will. And our lives become in alignment with the natural order in the universe, the in and out breath of God, the ebb and flow of life. Thought is the primal force that gives birth to life in all its forms. Just because you are not aware of your thoughts after they leave your head, it does not mean that your thoughts die. The moment you entertain any thought, the universe begins to work toward its manifestation. Everything is affected because all is one, the same body, the same being. Now, for you to understand more fully that everything is of one energy, let's start with the soul and work our way outward. Know that in every human being, there are more bodies than just the physical one, and there is much more taking place than meets the eye. The spirit self or body. The spirit is the aspect that descends into a body to partake of the human experience. It creates and governs all that is you. The spirit works in conjunction with your own awareness to bring about what is beneficial for you in your evolution so that you may one day embody the divine principle. The mental self or body. This aspect provides you with the ability to reason. Now, what I mean by reason is having the capability to consciously recognize what is right for you in any situation. It is the part of you that creates by thought and choice. The emotional self or body. This aspect is denser than the spiritual and mental bodies and is responsible for physical expression. It influences all the actions and reactions triggered by your pleasure-pain memories. Its enormous power brings what you are choosing into the certainty of being. The physical self or body. This is what most people think they are, the body. But really, your physical body is just a vehicle for your other bodies. It lets you move freely in the world while you work to align your personality with your soul. It is your individuality allowing you to come together with others to share life experiences. All these aspects make up the human entity. Even though they are different, they do have one thing in common. They are all made up of energy. And it is through such synergy that the physical, emotional, and mental bodies connect to the all-pervading spirit. On the earth plane, almost everyone perceives him or herself as an individualized unit, separate from all others. Such spiritual deficiency promotes spiritual dyslexia, a view of reality as outer to inner rather than inner to outer. This perception is in error because at a subatomic level, there is no separation whatsoever. Everything is just energy fluxing at God's speed, briefly bumping around, then taking off to somewhere else. Believe it or not, the human body is 99.9999% empty space. The other 0.00001% matter is just empty space as well. Matter consists of random blips of energy and informational discharges that solidify into a three-dimensional hologram, thus creating the illusion of solidity. The more that you can see and experience this as truth, the more your tendency to judge anything will diminish, because you will begin to understand that everything is you. When you cast judgment, not only do you create and bring about division from others, you deepen the conscious breach between yourself and that one cosmic body. You see, when you judge, love in your life begins to decay and fear begins to expand. Now, even though I describe separation as a truth, in and of itself, in truth, it's not real. Nothing can ever leave God's sight. That is the real truth. God lives in such wholeness that He even holds together the things that you may see as separate. Let's try this exercise. Look at your hand. Do you see it as a hand with separate fingers? Because of those empty spaces you see between them, you think that one finger has no connection to the others. This is but a perception of separation caused by your lack of focus on the entire hand, which, after all, is where your fingers extend from in the first place. Your hand represents the place where all things connect and originate, God. This simple lesson should lift your awareness beyond any deception. I hope you understand it. Now, let's look at the connection that you have with the earth and all life upon it. Again, I ask you to reflect upon your body and see it as one living organism housing billions of cells. You have skin cells, liver cells, brain cells, blood cells, and so on, all of them encapsulated in one wrapping of flesh. This holds true for the earth as well, where there are billions of individual cells called people who differ from one another in personality, appearance, sex, and race. Humans are embraced by a much larger organism, Earth. Humans are to Earth as cells are to humans. From micro to macro, the universal design is the same. Let me show you. Atomic to cellular, body to world, solar to galactic, stellar to universal. All systems spin around one central source. Atoms and cells have elements spinning around one central source called the nucleus. And you and Earth spin around one central source called the sun. The solar system revolves around the Milky Way galaxy with that huge cluster of stars at its center. Galaxies rotate around the cosmos, and the universe revolves around God, the great central sun. I know you have heard the expression, "He thinks the world revolves around him." Well, this is actually the truth of it. Everything revolves around God, for it is God who spins all into life. With this new awareness of your relationship to the earth, other human beings, and God, you now have the ability to understand all that is taking place in the era that you're living in. I share with you this truth of your connectedness to bring you stability and to provide you with a deeper comprehension of the way things will play out in these transitional times. You mean things will get worse before they get better? What I'm saying is, the more you are informed with truth, your knowledge of your unity with God and the earth will only aid you when the wheels of spirit really begin to roll. You may also be saying, "Well, Keith, that sounds both promising and ominous. What dynamic is taking place now?" The Earth's energy is beginning to shift dramatically, and it is lifting at an exponential rate. The pace of life is accelerating like never before. And in this age of computer technology, when phenomena quickly become obsolete, most people find it tough just to keep up. But it is very important for you to update yourself and absorb as much information as possible. After all, who do you think is behind the idea of this time being called the information age? It's God. It's the time for information. It's the time for knowledge, the time for enlightenment. And when at last humanity does finally get to taking in what Scripture has been telling us for eons of time, world peace will be ours. So what do we call this time that we're living in? The end, the beginning, the new age, the golden age, revelation, Armageddon, the rapture. What do we call this? It really doesn't matter what you call it. But what does matter is that we begin to believe with all of our heart that God is blanketing the earth with love's vision so that we can begin to see what was created, how it's working, and what needs to be recycled for further expansion. We must also understand that the closer, in quotes, closer, that God gets to us, the more the law of cause and effect will be in play. Said a different way, as God's light pierces the illusion of time and space, everything about us will be unmasked to reveal our shadow selves or our own illusions. Said another way, cause and effect will not be separate, and our thoughts will begin to manifest immediately. And as the world keeps moving down the timeline, reality will begin to exponentiate. Thought to manifestation, that window, the interval will be smaller. It's because the power of spirit is begin to wind its way through every soul on the planet, which makes this moment the perfect time for you to create your life's desires. This is the period where your life can swing either way. You can have everything you've ever wanted without all the stress and strain and work, or just by not caring and procrastinating and being lazy with your life, things can become very crazy for you. And I do support you in your life being all that you truly want it to be. God is getting closer and beginning to mirror to us, as I said before, exactly who we are as a thinking, feeling, doing being. It is so simple that in our difficulty, we have overshot the truth, that the whole system of creation works in harmony, constantly learning and updating, ever expanding. And it's this time that Spirit is ready to reveal to us all the progress that we have made in this human earth experience. The problem that we are having basically is that we are so wrapped up in the drama of life just being too much that we often forget to look within ourselves for relief. And what we don't realize is that Spirit is trying to unleash a higher reality within us so that we can have our relief and still have our fun. This is the whole point of heaven on earth, so you can live your heaven on this physical plane. I mean, we've played around in the lighter realities basically for eternity. And we want to come down here and experience some dense matter on this great stage of earth and choose what we want as a race, as a people. But what we are trying to get to is to have spiritual consciousness at a bodily level. And people have come here before to prove that. Buddha, Christ, Krishna, Sai Baba, Babaji, many avatars have come to show that it is doable. It is a very doable thing that we can embody divine consciousness here on this earth plane. Also, like the analogy before, all things in the universe are individual cells of God. As we embody God, God embodies us. This is the soul, S-O-L-E. This is the soul, S-O-U-L, reason that we are here. That is to activate and anchor the divine principle on this earth's physical plane. One thing I always talk about when I do presentations, and I feel this is very, very important. Earlier in this audio program, I had mentioned that this is the perfect time to create your life, and your life will either swing one way or the other. Well, this has always been true. But the point I'm trying to make with this is there is an enormous potential for unpleasant things to manifest in your life that need not necessarily come into being. As love energy continues to lift, all things will quicken into manifestation. So if you wish to avert any adversity, you must clear yourself of any hate, any guilt, and any fear that you are holding on to. If these obstacles are not addressed, trust me when I tell you that trouble will continue to show up for you on a regular basis. And it can get to a point to where something that you have launched as a creation in the past will present itself, and it may be so large that you will not be able to balance it. And this would be a very, very bad day for you. Understand that when the bad moon rises on people, that they often and quick to say that God is testing them. This is completely nonsensical because it makes God out to be a tempting devil, which he's definitely not. In fact, it's ludicrous for people to think that God would tempt or tease them or play any part in the bad choices and the consequences that follow. And when it comes down to owning of a situation that they may find themselves in, they want no part of it. So they play the devil made me do it card, which is a futile attempt to transfer their own responsibility onto a figment that does not exist at all. These divine diabolical tests are given soul to soul to generate experiences, to provide some self to self reflection. God has no hand in such trivial matters. I mean, this is of your own creation. And the fact that these lessons come back around again and again only points out to people that they have not yet resolved specific negative energies. But if you choose, the tools that I'm offering in this audio program will help you transcend your own stuff and help you to connect with your inner light, your soul. Indeed, this reunion must take place before you can ever know God. God is the soul, and you must become consciously aware of your own self at that level. But whatever you decide to do really doesn't matter to the higher consciousness because in the end, like the devil, which does not exist, all creation will consciously return to spirit. So it's basically you are able to do what you want as long as you want, because between now and eternity, you will eventually go back home. Whether you choose that out of your own will, or if you create a life and you humble yourself, and you will make the choice that way. Either way, you will return to divine consciousness. It's important to know what are the components of love. Living your life with style, living your life with fun, living your life with integrity. These are vital components of love. When I was writing the Divine Principle, I asked a question to Spirit. I said, what constitutes love, and can anything exceed the parameters of love? And the answer that came forth was, it's very simple. First, if you do not use your free will to impinge upon someone else's, you are exercising my love. Second, my love knows no parameters. It transcends all boundaries of time, space, and judgment. It adheres to no rules pertaining to this or that. I do not judge something to be anything other than myself. Everything is derived from the source. So what you can say is that God is infinite potential. It is everything, everywhere, all the time. In fact, there is no form that is not God, and there is no name that God does not bear. God is really not his, her, its name, though the word does invoke an image of the highest authority. What God really is, it's the ultimate awareness. It's perpetual, infinite potential. So surely that you can understand that everything born of infinite potential has within it its own spark of infinite potential. Everything has infinite potential to become infinite potential. But to become invincible like God, we must go deep within ourselves and begin to reach for that infinite potential. And when you begin to look inward to reach for that magnificent infinity, you will begin to pierce through any confusion that you may have. You will begin to be introduced to your infinite potential in everything you are capable of. Now, as clearly as there are rewards for going inside of yourself, there are definite consequences for going outside, reaching out and grabbing the external world. When we do that, we become vulnerable to all of its influences and the rules that apply on the physical plane. It's there that we encounter the many distractions and temptations that result in the conscious disconnection. So looking to the temporal world for what we think we need implies a belief that we are lacking something. I ask you, why must you reach outward for fulfillment when you can never reach your infinite potential and power that way? So by now, I think you're starting to grasp that God is life itself and cannot be separate from creation. Because if this was possible, everything would cease to exist. But the reason we sometimes find life so challenging is because we give credence to the idea that the world outside of us is something separate, and which that has caused so many of us to feel so alone, so afraid. But here's the kicker. All of us have the potential to tap into that part of ourself that connects us to God. So what I'm saying is that we embody so many of God's principles. As Scripture says, you are created in the image and likeness of God. This is Genesis 5:1. What happens if you remove your life force, yourself, from your checking account? Well, obviously, it's no longer a checking account. It closes. What happens to a relationship when you break it off? Well, it's obvious. It's no longer a relationship. What happens if you separate yourself from anything? Well, it would no longer be a part of your reality. Are you doing your best to intentfully move in a happy, peaceful, abundant, stable direction? Like me, I've procrastinated for many, many years. Sometimes I still catch myself procrastinating. Well, that's what growth is all about, to monitor ourselves and see where we are pausing and hesitating so that we can become more fluent with our life and move more in a happy, peaceful, loving, healing, balanced direction. If you do procrastinate, why do you think you're procrastinating? And what are you doing to get out of that habit of just stopping yourself from living your life, moving forward, and enjoying what you're doing and being in the present moment as often as you can? If God is complete love, is there anything that was created that is not an extension of God? If God is love and you are, at your essence, God, why is fear a part of your experience and not part of the divine? Well, fear is just that. It's a fear. Time and again, we all have made mistakes by living without divine principles. And that has perpetuated our fear and left us with all those feelings of lack. Now remember, whenever you buy into one of your fears, it's because you have a false sense of emptiness. Let me break this down for you. You can say that fear is false emptiness actualizing reality. F-E-A-R. False emptiness actualizing reality. It's a space void of love. It's a space void of God. It's actually a space void of you. The you that you are at your essence, your authentic, genuine self. Fear is just a self-created block that constricts you and it keeps you from becoming open. It keeps you from making yourself available for the divine to come in and seed itself into your being and bring you the fulfillment that you've been looking for all of your life. So you see, even though you have God qualities, fear is the one thing that you do not share with God because it has no connection to anything that is love. Fear and love are on opposite sides of the spectrum. Fear and love cannot occupy the same space. So the physics here are not that complex to understand. Fear is yours and yours alone. Later on, when I share the divine principle with you and you begin to put them to use, you will begin to see your fears dwindle, I promise you. Living these divine principles will keep you focused on God as your only goal and your only reality. And applying them at every opportunity will help you to become a part of the all-pervading reality of love, the living truth. Fear is something that we use as a way of protecting ourselves from something. What you may have not yet realized is that your fear does not protect you. What it does is it complicates the various scenarios that you are efforting to simplify. You may think that being afraid keeps you out of harm's way in a crisis, but what it does, it actually throws you directly into its path, where you must repeat the lesson, no matter how long it takes. According to universal law, all actions spawned from a fearful place must come back around for review and resolution. If you do not clear your present self of past problems, you will, believe me, you will be reborn again and again until you finally resolve them. The thing I must tell you about reincarnation is that it both does and does not exist. When Scripture speaks of the beginning and the end, it's to accommodate our current frame of reference. Its concepts, Scripture's concepts, have to be conveyed in this way because at this point we're only mindful of a linear timeline and cannot easily digest and conceive of eternity. Even though I speak about reincarnation implying that you have many lives, past, present, and future, there really is only one soul, God, you. But our consciousness must flip-flop around and through the time-space continuum until we remember that. Until we remember that, we have lived many, many lifetimes only to find ourselves here now. And although we have lived in many different forms, none of them is really what we are. For what we are is the spirit that has lived, lives now, and will live forever. In most of our incarnations, we have chosen the world of the external and the material over that of the spiritual, thus guaranteeing the repetition of our births and deaths. But if you want to live eternally, where there is no more birth and death, just life everlasting, you have to replace your fear with love. Now, once you get to that level, your consciousness will no longer be interrupted. The cycle will no longer perpetuate. But as for now, we are only the potential of what we can become. Think about the word external. Notice its similarity to the word eternal. Observe that there is just one difference. The X in the word external crosses out and interrupts the flow of the word eternal. Well, this is exactly what happens to our consciousness when we choose to live in external mode. We cross out all of our chances for eternity. And so the current of your life will go until the time you are able to live in unbroken flow. And if you are honestly seeking union with divinity, you must hold steadfastly to your intentions and be ever vigilant. When you choose to live this kind of life mode, this unbroken flow, this life mode, then your next death cycle will truly be a divine birth. You may ask, is that what it means to be reborn? Well, not quite. Birth's intention is to not be born again, and death's intention is to never again die. The intentions are really both the same, to give you every possible chance to consciously unify with all that is in existence. Now, whether you choose to go along with this program is entirely up to you.
It's up to you. You have free will. That's the way it always was and is still. What's meant to be, think carefully, 'cause that will come true right before you.
It is vital that you begin to inform yourself on all matters, especially spiritual teachings from around the world. When you do, you will find all the doctrines you study are but jigsaw puzzle pieces waiting to be assembled. When the puzzle finally pieces together, do not be surprised when you see God's face shining through as the image. You must not accept blindly that everything you have been taught or will hear is true. Figure things out for yourself by weighing all the possibilities and all the probabilities of what is the likely truth. You may ask a very simple question. Is there anything that God does not know? Well, God doesn't know of fear. God is ignorant of fear because there is no reality in such energy. And so it makes sense that God would not dwell there. But fear, let's talk about fear again. Fear is like a cancer. It will eat away at you. We must begin to expose ourselves to love's radiation, so to speak, because if we don't, fear will continue to take over our minds, our emotional bodies, our physical bodies. And when that becomes too much to handle, a person is usually forced to create their own death to escape their unbearable life. I hope that it dawns on you at some point in your life that wherever you go, you are still you. Nothing changes if you don't change yourself from within, with or without a body. So I say to you, if you are sincerely seeking a better life, take responsibility and take action by pulling your perception out from under your fear. Only then will you be able to live in peace and share your love with all things in creation. Now let's go back to the basics of self-love. It begins with finding that part of you that is original, your innermost being, and consciously reuniting with it. Discovering such a sense of your own self will introduce into your life the same power to manifest that Jesus and other ascended masters throughout time have demonstrated in theirs. And it will bring you into balance so that the same divine energies with which they created miracles will be available for your use. Once you cross the spiritual threshold, you will be able to further honor the contract you made with Spirit before you were born, because you will then know through experience that the life force within you is God. You will have no choice but to live your life as a love offering. After all, this is your purpose, to anchor the divine principle in your day-to-day reality. Why does it seem that alignment is so doggone difficult? It's because of that noisy battle of right and wrong. We often are pulled this way and that way through these two poles. What is the right choice? And listening to this voice, buying into this dynamic, this dance, is what keeps you rigidly locked into a victim position. Now, there are many people out there who are able not to tune out, but to tune through their own mental static. They've learned how to twist the dial. They've learned how to balance the dynamic of energy within, and they are able to hear the voice of their intuition, their guidance, their guides, their higher self a lot more clearly. If a person lives their whole life with a right or wrong point of view and uses their past memories to handle present circumstances, well, it's just that the stillness and clarity necessary to make sound choices will never, ever be available. Now, I'm not saying that that position is either right or wrong. What I am saying is that it can only result in one of those two possible outcomes, one of either right or one of wrong. It's the ego that keeps people strapped into the front car of their own emotional roller coaster on a ride that never ends, because just over every incline is another right or wrong scenario that launches them through those disorienting swoops and loops over and over and over again. And as long as people refuse to get off of their judgment ride, they can never hope to plant their feet on the solid ground of peace. Concepts of right and wrong are taught by and learned from parents, society, and those who claim to be an authority on the subject of God's Word. But what if the true meaning of life is neither way? How on earth can someone come to understand another alternative? Well, it's obvious to me that it would have to be through a teacher who is the embodiment of such information, such compassion, such love. One who is the example. And so it's really not about the duality of right and wrong. In a beautiful world, unconditional love would be the influencer. It would be that which creates the path for everyone to travel. And it's the most effective way that I know of to create the peace that we all seek. And those who have not heeded these types of teachers' examples, These are the people that are living in that right and wrong world, which is why they're having so much trouble agreeing about what is supposedly right or wrong. One way to get what I'm saying is by observing life partners who claim to love unconditionally, but yet remain stuck in their conditional condition, arguing all the time. Another prime example is the strife that exists among many of the world's nations, each standing firm on our idea is right and your idea is wrong. This attitude inevitably leads to arguments, wars, and continued separation, frustration standoffs between those who would rather defend their own posture than concede and compromise. Here's a very big question. But what about the people who say that their right or wrong opinion is based on God's law? Well, what about them? You are going to come across people, especially even some religious leaders, who support that opinion by saying, God has determined what is right and wrong, and God is something to fear. It never ceases to amaze me when I hear fear and God in the same breath. The scripture that says, judge not, lest ye be judged, does not mean that God judges your right and wrongs and then punishes you for your sins. It means that when you judge yourself for the poor decisions that you have made in the past, and you judge others for the faults you really see in your own self. God is not like us in this regard. God has no past to cast a judgment upon, for it takes all of God's time just to be the love necessary to sustain everything in creation. God's stance of unconditional love should very clearly define who and what it is. What defines the world is its present dilemma, figuring out how to catch the ultimate wave of universal law. Up until now, most of us have wiped out in all of our attempts because we have not yet learned the laws that will let us, so to speak, hang 10 and master the ride all the way to spirit. But now that you have this desire to change, God will present the opportunity to climb atop his surfboard, to make a fun analogy, and then we can finally coast in and land on a peaceful shore. Here's a law, the law of gravity. How's that for a law? Until you are a master, if you go against this law, serious trouble is certain to come your way. Have you jumped off any buildings lately? The law of karma. You reap what you sow. Cause and effect. What comes around goes around. For each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's this particular push and pull of energy. This law ensures a divine order and keeps it that way. And your difficulty has been that until recently, maybe you did not know that you were the one responsible for creating your reality. The law of all possibilities. This is one of my favorites. The universe is a place where miracles are normal occurrences. Most people do not understand, believe, or can even imagine that miracles are normal occurrences. Miracles are everywhere. It's just a matter of focus. It's a matter of taking in, a matter of allowing, a matter of accepting, a matter of appreciating. Most people think that miracles are that which happens to the fortunate few. Everything has the right to be, so everything is potential waiting to manifest itself. And what will make those things possible for you is the clarity that you will find by pursuing God. But if you choose to keep on bearing the burden of doubt, the hopelessness that accompanies it will assure that nothing promising will ever come your way. The law of giving. To give is to receive, the way of the Christ. Our illusion of lack is what has caused us to be selfish and to take, thus ensuring our ongoing impoverishment. The law of purpose or dharma. Find what your role is in the grand scheme and perform it by allowing your spirit's expression to live and work in your life. Going against this law will put you on a sure path to misery. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people express themselves, live their life in this mode, and they are miserable because they are not living their passion. It's a very, very disheartening thing when I see my brothers and sisters who have this gift, this talent, but they also have belief that they cannot do this and be successful in their life. The law of detachment. To find fulfillment in the indwelling God, all idol worship must be abandoned. Being attached to the external world, it doesn't work, because when its temporal things are no longer a part of our life, our happiness most assuredly leaves with them. Very simply, these are spiritual laws. If you work with them, I promise you, they will work for you. And if you ignore them, the simple will become difficult. Later on, I will offer more guidelines for you to follow as you endeavor to live in the Spirit. What about rules, Keith? Are there any? Well, not really. Just keep reflecting on what was mentioned about the law of karma, and that will keep you in order and eventually free you. So what has been binding us all this time? It's the mind, it's the mind, it's the mind. It's the prison, and the ego is the warden. And we stay locked up inside because we still listen to that keeper of fear, and we disregard those types of spiritual laws that I just mentioned just a bit ago. But from this day forth, you can always pardon yourself from this life sentence by listening to the inner voice, the voice of unconditional love inside, and by also following, for example, those laws I just posed, and by accepting the fact that God is here now and offering us the key to unlock our spirit. All of us have the ability. All we have to do is accept it and to know that we truly deserve a life that is blissful, a life that is good, a life that is abundant. You must believe that the Christ is you, and you must begin to live that belief so that you can marshal the power to move you through the illusions of separation, disease, and ultimately death that will continue to present themselves. It's your perception, only there by choice, that prevents you from doing that. Another thing that keeps us from knowing the self is the large dose of doubt that we have carried from other lifetimes. When will we begin to realize that doubt is the most destructive force that we can inflict upon ourselves? What do you think that keeps you from just knowing? Confusion? Well, yeah. But why are you confused? It's like there's that battle going on within me, and I feel I know it's real, but my analytical mind tries very hard to convince me otherwise. It's because we have allowed all that stuff that we have taken in since birth to rule our decision making. Yes, it's that internal struggle. That's what I meant earlier when I spoke to you about right and wrong. Confusion has shaped our every doubt. Doubt has created our confusion and the lack of clarity. Fear has taken away our power to create the life we truly want. These are the only opponents. There are no others. The only way that we can win this game that I am talking about here is to just stop playing it. But how, you may ask? Stop thinking that you yourself are incapable of creating something beautiful. Because when you doubt, you either move forward in time or back, away from the power of the here and now. Doubt always creates gravity, drag, and dread, and as soon as you entertain it, it stifles anything creative you are trying to will forth. Only when you begin to trust that everything will fall into place will you find your real power. Just give yourself the gift of accepting, if only for a few minutes at a time at first, that you are in a state of knowing, always, a state in which you can easily recognize whether or not there is doubt, whether or not there is trust, whether there is fear or love that is in charge of your life at any given moment. Then begin to peg the power that doubt holds over you and use this to your advantage. If you notice doubt, just redirect your knowing to cancel it. Realize that nothing can possibly manifest through it. Let that knowing part of you that so wants to blossom transform doubt into trust. Then watch what happens. The knower within you, with the know-how to get what you want, will silently emerge. If you take your trust to the ultimate level by wanting nothing and trusting your higher self, God, with your entire life, Spirit will begin to move within you and give you something far beyond what you can dream up on your own. Well, you've heard the saying, it takes one to know one. In such a way, the self will see its own beautiful, miraculous self, for God is everywhere. That's the miracle. Now, as you endeavor to see and be this miracle that I'm talking about, you will come across many keys that fit many doors, but only one will release you from the emptiness you may sometimes feel. Which one is it? It's the one that opens the door leading you to the void where miracles can happen. It's about being vulnerable. It's about making yourself available. You must become empty inside. Again, the word I like to use is vulnerable. It's something that really helps me to fall into that vulnerability is humility. That's what does it for me. I know what you're going to say, but Keith, you don't understand. It is so intimidating to go to that place. Yes, I do know. I know it very, very well. That's why I'm able to sit here and present this audio program, because I've done a lot of intensive and extensive internal work. And I know that place very well. But you have to be willing, my friend, to go through hell to get to heaven. And you will actually find the divine present itself to you in this place. Well, that's easy for you to say, Keith. Know that I do understand your reluctance to confront your own demons, the abyss. That being said, just do it anyway. God is here for you in places that you are not even present within yourself to give you that feeling that everything is okay. And all you need to do is let go and expand your awareness until you recognize the sureness of that. If you would, close your eyes and think of something that is really, really troubling you. Breathe in and breathe out evenly for a few minutes. Fall deeper into yourself. Take notice of those negative feelings that come up. Then with your last exhale, release your troublesome thought to the universe and listen carefully. Do you hear it? Do you hear the soft voice of your soul whispering its wisdom into your heart? You must begin to go deeper and deeper within yourself to discover where all your demons dwell. And when you find them, it will probably look like a scared child cowering in a corner. But do not be fooled by its appearance, and do not attempt to offer it pity, because it can and will take advantage of you. If you must, use another intense visualization to yank that particular demon out of your subconscious. Then offer it up to the light of consciousness and watch it melt like the vampires you've seen in all those movies. When you begin to see through all your illusions, the beauty that has always been there will truly humble you. It will put you on your knees. You will begin to have your consciousness dwell in your heart. The circle of life will then curve back through you like in a feedback loop. And suddenly God will become present for you at a conscious level. Now, as far as future lessons, when something happens that you know can potentially be with you for a long time, I suggest that you heed and heal it at the very moment it transpires. While an issue is still new, it's still potential energy, it has not yet become static. But if you let it fester, it will put down very deep roots in you in an effort to mire you in its illusion. And the longer it stays frozen, the tougher the thaw will be. I know I've been telling you that everything is God, so you must be wondering, how is it that terrible things can be God? Well, what we perceive as terrible is not the reality of God. It's the illusion created by us. What I'm saying is that the mind can never open up enough to take the infinity of God in, so we must open our heart in order to move out of that type of illusion and into the spiritual reality. And you will know that you are there when you begin to see a world made up of hues that you can never see before. Everything will appear different to you, as if illuminated. You will know you have become heart-centered when you notice that joy is residing within you full time. That illumination thing has happened to me quite a bit, where things seem to have a glow A very, very soft glow around them. Everything looks very blended together. And I've wanted to know for a long time how to expand that space. And when I was writing The Divine Principle, Spirit shared with me, being conscious of keeping your breathing just as even and steady as possible, not only when you're meditating, but all the time. When you begin to live your life with this relaxed, letting go kind of feeling, a willingness to lose everything to gain yourself, you will have the same kind of joy and complete trust where there was none before. And that space that you are looking for to expand will do just that. You must also stop reaching for other things first and then God when it is convenient for you. Perhaps you've been trying to seek Spirit with all that wanting, but it's the idolatry that has kept us from the bounty of Spirit. Another thing that keeps us all separate from God in the abundance and the goodness is the very thought that we are separate, along with pondering the fearful thought that we are not. We should remind ourselves that we came here with nothing and we will leave here with nothing. We came here with no thing and we will leave here with no thing. In the meantime, we can cultivate, nurture, and develop our soul because that we can take with us wherever we go. And whenever your intent needs adjusting, pull out your favorite spiritual book, be it the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran. Doesn't matter. Find something that brings you to a space inside, for example, a particular passage. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. How comforting is that to know that instead of living in the world of the external, all we need is the simple intention to turn inward, to heal, to develop and grow. Then everything, because of our happiness, becomes magnetically attracted to us. And the life that you have been wanting begins to unfold effortlessly all around you.
People listen to me as I sing this song for you. The message that I'm bringing is one of hope and truth. Look inside, that's where the love lies.
Christ, Buddha, many other teachers have taught the same message of unity with Spirit. And teachers still come bearing the same message. Look within to know God, all of them say. The profound cannot be found in a church nor in a belief system, but only in the temple of the heart. It would be correct to say that the heart is a stargate, and when we traverse it, we enter the doorway to the kingdom of heaven where universal love reigns. And once we begin to move further into that experience, we begin to feel much lighter. And I've always talked about meditation and prayer. These are tools, these are ways that will help you to begin to feel that energy of serenity, that energy of peace. So I always strongly encourage and support you in meditating. I know it often seems like your life is a game and you have to be good at this game to advance to any particular level to have the rewards that life should offer. Well, the best way to get out of this game is to do the spiritual work. The spiritual work is what takes us out of the fear time wheel, and we do want to get out of that once and for all. I can't emphasize it enough that you must always try to make your spiritual work fun, because having fun is what keeps us in that God state, totally unaware of the linear timeline. So let me ask you, when you're having fun, where does time seem to go? Well, time disappears because we've shifted from the head to the heart. We fall into joy, into bliss. Now let's switch to the other side. For example, doing something you really don't want to do. You feel that heaviness that often comes over you in such a situation. And we begin to look at a watch or a clock or any sort of timepiece and realize that this is something I feel I have to do and not something I just want to do because it's fun. That's where you literally shift from God, joy, bliss to dread, drag, time, gravity, that weight of not wanting to do a particular something. We must begin to realize that we can serve the universe in a far greater way than by trying to find love through approval, by doing these have-to-do burdens. If someone asks you for a favor and you feel that you should do it to look good in their eyes, that'll never work. It may work temporarily. I mean, by all means, if someone asks something of you and you feel like you want to be of service and you really want to give, I encourage that. It's a beautiful thing. But if it's something that really, really takes you away from your joy, then there are other ways. Instead of trying to find love through approval, than just to be always in the moment of love, to be love. This is the greatest responsibility. And I promise that meeting it will be no burden on you, and it will benefit not only you, but everyone you come in contact with. And so why wait to come to what you call terms with any aspect of your life? Why not let your heart's rapid response team do the healing now? And all it really requires on your part is just to want to dwell there. Just that wanting is enough to place your consciousness in that sacred holy space, your heart, where spirit dwells. With our current way of looking at things, cause then effect is how we think it goes. But though we perceive the past and the future to be completely different, God does not. In actuality, they are two sides of the same coin. Cause implies a past intention when measured against effect, the manifestation of that intention over a linear period. Thus, the past and the future have no choice but to be bridged by the eternal now, the wormhole that folds time and space. And believe me, the moment you launch an intention into the universe, it is manifested on some level. And as long as humanity is lost in time, all manifestations will seem to come as future occurrences. But as we begin to release more and more fear, the time it takes for us to notice such manifestations will quicken. Only when we remove all doubt and mind clutter, we will begin to assume mastership and be able to both manifest what we desire in a holy instant and anchor the divine principles for life. Does time have benefits? Well, time is of great benefit for us at this point, for if it were not for this shock absorber, the fear encapsulator in our head could not handle events that might manifest immediately. You can probably understand why when someone would die, go to the other side, in an afterlife experience, this could be referred to as hell. Perfect example, a spiritualist, knowing what I know. When I cross to the other side, first thing I'm going to do is run to a light source or anything that lets me know there's a higher reality, God, if you will, because that's what I've been pursuing all of my life. Now, someone who has a different mindset, when they pass to the other side and they believe in guilt, punishment, devil, God is vengeful, God is judging, as they cross over now, when they see the same light source or experience that I'm running to, it's the last thing they want to do now. So what they're going to do is fall into this spiritual fetal position and induce this guilt, hell. And so because of the buffer of time, we are able to change, refine our creation as it comes to us. We are able to tweak the process. It is time that has fooled us into not knowing that we create our entire existence. The difference between us and God is that we are caught up in time's illusion and bound to the body, so we cannot possibly see the next reality that we have created and the next and the next. Well, why? Our ever-active fears denied us clarity and self-love. When we unify with God, we become a part of something so divinely laid out that struggle ceases to be an issue. All you have to do is think of something and bang, it happens. And this should give you some idea of the inexhaustible love that God has for you. Many people remain unaware of how to create deliberately. But now that you are learning how, you can choose not to react to circumstance, but instead put the power of love into action to bring about exactly what you deserve and what you desire. Everything is there for you to understand, cultivate, and grow from. Even so, to live the good life, you must own every aspect of it. Only then can you begin to mend your personality that is split between pleasure and pain, good and bad, love and fear. When you find your balance within that dichotomy, your life will become one of infinite potential. I ask you, has it not been rough living with this confusing split and not really knowing for certain who you are? Well, it was for me and still can be. In my earlier years when I tried to be a good Christian by ignoring my darker side, this really didn't work at all because my unattended fears were left to grow like wild weeds. When they got thick enough, they started to leach vital, nourishing energy that could have been used elsewhere for my enlightened growth. And believe me, I had to cut those weeds down time after time after time. And sometimes I did it just by doing productive things. But they would grow back because I've not yanked them all out by the roots. And over time, they just regenerated and caused me needless grief. Some of my fears are still manifesting, to use a word, in my subconscious. Inactive, but they're still very active because of my well-intentioned attempts. Sometimes I think that they are gone, but they're not. And as long as I continue to neglect them, the energy flow within me will be obstructed. As long as you neglect yours, the energy flow within you will be obstructed. We have to go in there and pull these weeds out by doing extensive, intensive spiritual work. People have asked me the question, why do these bad things happen to me? I am such a good person. And they will turn around and pray to their favorite deity when they're troubled, and they must wonder if their prayers are heard. Of course your prayers are heard. God can be likened to a wishing tree, and clear or not, you approach with an intention, a question, a request. Because of the unconditional love, it's granted. Even a prayer that comes from lack is answered. And since lack can only beget lack, if you approach Spirit and ask Spirit to help you to be irresponsible, and so be it. If you expect any deity to unburden your troubled soul, you will be waiting for a very long time. Why should anyone other than you assume your responsibility? The universal system is just not designed to work that way. It's just not. You've heard the expression, the Lord helps those who help themselves. Because heaven and earth cannot be anchored until everyone assumes that kind of responsibility, the responsibility of becoming a deity. So now would be a good time to assess yourself in a way that you have not before. Believe me, denial is not a river in Egypt. Denial only creates piles of confusion, kind of like dog poop you inevitably step in because you do not see it. So to help yourself out of the mess that you're in, you must wear responsible shoes and walk responsibly in them. Responsibility only comes when you embrace your entire self, your fears and all. You must be saying, I wish I could just throw all my fears in the trash can. Well, if you could, along with that toss would go the very wisdom that shapes you, for both are parts of your perfect design. And besides, if you didn't have the fears that you have, you would be someone else. So what you can do is change what your fears mean to you. See it as a tool to help unfold the wisdom that you have within. You are the dreamer. You are the creator almighty. And yes, you are the one that has been making this up for a very long time. In fact, for an eternity. We are just getting much better at the making up process. So again, call a meeting with these two aspects of yourself. The split personality between pleasure and pain, good and bad, light and dark, right and wrong. Go inside, embrace your pain. Invite your pain. Feel the pain. You may be thinking, oh my God, Keith, I'm serious. Embrace your pain. Invite your pain. Feel your pain. Then change what it means to you by recognizing it from your heart's perspective. See the beauty of your predicament. You may be asking, what do I mean by the beauty of this kind of predicament? That God is with you in every moment, just waiting to give you the gift of your true self, You must begin to ask, God, where are you in this illusion that overwhelms me? Then step back, step outside of it, and watch Spirit go to work on your situation. But stay aware of Spirit moving so that you will know when it's time for you to step back in. Simply said, use your instinct. It's that innate voice. It's that wisdom. Instinct is life's common thread of purpose and knowing. It comes from all previous times to guide us on the right path, the path to Spirit. Use your instincts. It is the wisdom that comes from within. It is that small voice that speaks. It's that subtlety of the Spirit. It's part of who we are. It's been with us forever. And as we continue to go through our life, our instincts of the path become announced, and we begin to move down the path with more and more certainty. But it's not enough just to see. We must begin to look. And ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart. For the world to ever attain heaven on earth, things just cannot be as they are now. It will take all nationalities coming together to achieve the goal of love, peace, and unity. We must begin to trust that God will guide us in whatever we do. We need to remember to breathe and do our very best to live in love, give in love, be in love, and love we will then begin to receive. It is time that we embrace ourselves. It is time that we embrace our humanity and embrace the earth. When we do this, we embrace God.
Surely as the rain may fall, I wonder why. Worried there'll come a time when my world is dry, oh so dry. In the summertime I won't have no water